What's up guys, Enkiri here. Everyone is always asking me about my diet. What do I eat to stay so lean while still consistently making strength gains? I actually did a video on my diet a few years ago titled Diet of an Elite Powerlifter, which I'll link below in the description. But my typical daily diet has changed considerably since then. So I thought it would be pretty cool to make another video on this topic and compare the two diets from a macronutrient standpoint so we can see how they differ. Frankly, until I made this video, I had no idea whether I was eating more total calories now or less total calories now, more or less protein now, more or less carbs now, etc. So it was cool for me to analyze the numbers and see how they've changed over the last couple of years. I hope you guys find it interesting as well and are able to take away some useful information from this case study of how a single strength and power athlete has tweaked his diet over the years to maximize his performance in the weight room while slowly building muscle and losing some body fat over the years. Now, the first thing I want to do is give you guys a brief overview of my old diet, just so you can get an idea of what it was then compared to now. The focal point of this video is going to be my current diet. So if you're interested in the specific foods and types of meals I was eating before, you should watch the video I linked in the description. But briefly, when I made my last diet video in 2015, I was eating 3 main meals per day, consisting approximately of 3,900 calories with 270 grams of protein, 270 grams of carbs, and about 197 grams of fat. That's a lot of calories for such a small guy. But at the time, not only was I training hard in the gym 6 days a week, but I was also working full-time in a job that had me on my feet most of the day, cumulatively logging several miles of walking per day, while also performing a moderate amount of physical work. So it makes sense. Now, let's see how my current diet compares to my former diet. These days, I'm still eating 3 main meals per day, but the meal compositions and the foods have changed a lot. A typical breakfast is what I call my muscle-building oatmeal. That's comprised of 1 cup of oats, 2 cups of whole milk, about 1 1/4 to 1 1/2 scoops of optimum nutrition protein powder, a bunch of cinnamon, 6 tablespoons of unsweetened shredded coconut, a few tablespoons of almond slices, a few tablespoons of whole flax seeds, and a banana. In addition to this, I drink 2 cups of coffee before my breakfast, and I add 1 tablespoon of heavy whipping cream to each cup because it's freaking delicious and half and half is for babies. All told, this adds up to approximately 1,500 calories with 135 grams of carbs and 70 grams of protein. My second meal of the day is split up into 2 parts, pre-workout and post-workout. Typically, shortly before I train, I'll eat something light, like a loaf of pita bread, which I dip into a mixture of Greek yogurt, olive oil, and different spices. I'll let that digest for 30 to 60 minutes, and then I hit the gym. Then after training, or sometimes still during training, I'll eat a Quest bar along with a bit of fruit, usually a handful of dates because they're delicious, they're ready to eat, they're high in sugar, which I need at this time, and they never spoil, so I can keep them on hand forever. But sometimes I'll also sub in a banana or 2 here instead, since they're also delicious and ready to eat. Altogether, this meal comes out to about 800 calories with 89 grams of carbs and 35 grams of protein. My final meal of the day is typically a mixture of rice, meat, beans, and cheese, with some veggies either mixed right in or sauteed and eaten on the side, depending on what I have on hand. I don't bother trying to calculate the calories and carbs in the vegetables because, for one, it's impossible to get an accurate count, and 2, who gives a shit? I'm not going to limit my consumption of vegetables because they contain trace amounts of carbohydrates, and anyone who does so is simply being short-sighted. No vegetable of any kind, not even the vilified carrot, ever made a single person fat or turned them into a diabetic. And don't tell me there aren't people out there who still think this, because I was just talking to someone this weekend who thought carrots were bad for you and will make you fat due to their score on the glycemic index. But that line of thinking is due to a fundamental misunderstanding of the application of the glycemic index, as well as pure ignorance of the existence of glycemic load. Long story short, veggies ain't the problem, so I don't even factor them in. And the long-term health benefits they confer far outweigh any negligible amount of calories or carbs they may contain. Anyway, after I clean everything up from dinner, I like to sit down and relax for a little bit while eating a bowl of fruit, typically an apple and some grapes. But I also love oranges, strawberries, peaches, and when I can get my hands on one, a good watermelon. Altogether, this meal comes out to approximately 1,400 calories with 138 grams of carbs, and 62 grams of protein. And now is where things get interesting. Compared to my diet from 2015, it looks like I eat slightly fewer calories these days, on the order of just a couple hundred less per day. I no longer work in a physically demanding job, so perhaps I intuitively decrease my calories ever so slightly to make up for that discrepancy. Pretty much all my physical activity these days comes from my work in the gym, which is substantial. And even though I weigh about the same now as I did in 2015, I'm leaner and carry more muscle these days. So it makes sense that even though I'm probably performing a good bit less total physical activity these days on any given day, my caloric requirements have only decreased slightly due to an increased basal metabolic rate from a greater lean body mass. By far the most interesting thing to note between these two time periods of my life and two different eating styles is the difference in the amount of protein and carbs consumed. While my fat consumption between the two time periods is relatively identical, I've decreased my average daily protein intake by about 100 grams over the last few years and made up for that by increasing my average daily carbohydrate intake by about 100 grams instead. Now, admittedly, I used to be slightly carbophobic, not full on, but just a little bit. So I avoided eating too much rice or potatoes, I didn't eat things like oatmeal, and I didn't eat much fruit. I'm not entirely sure when I decided to try to change things up, but I distinctly remember that at some point I did. And when I stopped restricting myself, I began eating copious amount of carbs at every single meal, now basing my breakfast around oats and fruit, being sure to ingest some carbs both before and after training, eating an extra large portion of rice or potatoes with my dinner, and eating some fruit every single night for dessert. This increase in carb consumption apparently came at the expense of my protein intake, which dropped from 1.75 grams per pound of body weight down to just 1 gram per pound of body weight. However, it's clear that 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight has been sufficient for me to not only maintain the muscle mass I have, but also to build a little bit more. I would also postulate that the way I was restricting my carbs before was actually holding back my progress. Until recent history, when I changed my diet up, I had gone years without any significant body composition changes. Yet, if we compare pictures of me in 2018 to pictures of me in 2015, it's clear that with the increased carb intake, I've become both leaner and more muscular while maintaining the same relative body weight. Perhaps it's all one big coincidence, but I doubt it. This was a real eye-opener for me. I knew I had increased my carb intake from before, but I didn't realize by just how much. And honestly, I think the changes in body composition speak for themselves. I've been aware of the muscle building and performance enhancing benefits of carbs for years, but when I was younger, I fell victim to the low carb fad. And once you get used to eating a certain way and doing it for so long, it can be a little unnerving to make such a drastic alteration to your macronutrients. After this analysis, however, that appears to be the smartest damn thing I've ever done in regards to my strength and muscle building journey. So now you guys know exactly what I eat in a typical day. The total number of calories, carbs, fats, protein, sugar, and even the amount of fiber I ingest. Hopefully you were able to learn something useful from this analysis, because hell, I know I have. Or at the very least, I hope you found it interesting. And that's all I got for now, guys. Please be sure to like the video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and definitely leave me some love in the comments down below. And if you're interested in online coaching, shoot me an email at enkiri.elite@gmail.com. I've still got the 1 slot left open, and then I'll be all booked up for now. And as always, if you enjoy the content I produce, please share your favorite stuff somewhere, and together, let's make hashtag Project 100K a reality. Keep training hard, and I will catch you guys next time.